Israel and the US unleashed war on Iran to stop it from building a nuclear weapon, something both countries say is an existential threat. But if Iran actually got a nuke, what would really happen? Welcome to Buried Origins. Today I'll try my best to describe this hypothetical scenario, as well as the dynamics at play. So let's get into it. Okay, so let's imagine that Iran has a nuclear bomb tomorrow. Well, just because they have a bomb doesn't actually mean that they would use it, as nuclear bombs are primarily defensive weapons used to prevent other countries from messing with you. And using them against countries that have nuclear weapons, like Israel and the US, would be a death sentence. But let's just indulge ourselves a little bit and ask the question, if Iran had a bomb and wanted to use it against its enemies, how successful could it be? Well, first, it depends on what type of bomb we're talking about. The quickest and easiest nuclear bombs to make are the types that are too big to fit onto missiles and need to be dropped from bombers right over their target, like the US did when it dropped 2 on Imperial Japan. Okay, technically Iran could put one of these bombs onto one of its transport planes and try to fly it towards Israel or the US bases in the region, but the chances of that being successful are wildly low. That's because Israel and the US bases in the region are incredibly well protected, and the transport plane would be very slow and have a huge radar signature, so it would be shot down almost immediately. Those planes are so non-threatening that it seems Israel didn't even target them in its recent bombing campaign. So then, what if Iran had a miniaturized nuclear weapon, one that could fit on top of a missile? Now this scenario is far more threatening to Iran's enemies, as while Israel and the US have superb capability to shoot down missiles, no air defense network is ever 100% effective, as we saw when Iranian missiles hit Israeli cities. Still, if Iran had only one or maybe a few of these nuclear missiles, it actually wouldn't be that threatening for Iran's main enemies, Israel and the US. Why that's the case for the US is actually quite simple. It's because none of Iran's missiles can reach anywhere near the US, and it lacks several key technologies in order to make such missiles. So it would have to target US bases in the Middle East, and even a successful strike on those bases would barely scratch the US military's overall capabilities. It would be a death sentence, as the US would certainly respond with its own nuclear weapons. Not to even mention that the US bases in the region are mostly in countries that Iran has very important relationships with, like Iraq, Qatar, and Turkey. So it would be a death sentence on several levels. Now, the reason a few Iranian nuclear missiles wouldn't necessarily be game over for Israel is because Israel has really good air defense. Over the past year and a half, Iran has launched about 500 missiles at Israel, and about 90 to 95% of them were shot down in the air. So Iran would need quite a significant arsenal of nuclear missiles in order to ensure it could even get a few through to their targets. But let's just say that Iran has that massive nuclear arsenal and wants to use it against Israel. Well, its primary target would almost certainly be Israel's nuclear arsenal to prevent Israel from nuking Iran. So Israel's nuclear arsenal is widely thought to consist of small airdrop bombs, large nuclear missiles in silos, and probably nuclear cruise missiles in its submarines. Now, Iran taking out all of those weapons simultaneously and preventing an Israeli nuclear attack as revenge is completely unrealistic. Even if Iran took out all of Israel's air bases and all of their nuclear missile silos, Israel is thought to maintain at least 1 to 2 submarines out at sea at all times, which are very likely capable of launching nuclear missiles. And Iran's anti-submarine capabilities are so weak that it's just too unrealistic to imagine a scenario in which they're able to defend against them. Okay, so now let's just imagine for a second that the Iranian government is okay with going out in a blaze of glory as long as they destroy Israel. That's a ridiculous scenario to think of because the Iranian government has traditionally been very risk-averse, but let's just picture it for a second. So then in this case, their primary target would probably be the Israeli government. But that government just so happens to be based in Jerusalem, one of Islam's holiest sites. For Iran, a Muslim country run by Muslim clerics, to target one of their holy cities with nuclear weapons is an absurd scenario to think of. And also, if Iran was somehow able to destroy Israel in a nuclear barrage without Israel attacking it back, then it is quite likely that the US would immediately nuke Iran, as the use of nuclear weapons to protect allies is explicitly written into the US's nuclear doctrine. Okay, last scenario. What if Iran gave one of these nuclear weapons to one of its proxy militias in the region to use against its enemies? perhaps by smuggling it onto a cargo ship that was entering a US or Israeli port. Theoretically, in this case, Iran could deny involvement, but it's also a bit hard to believe that Israel or the US wouldn't immediately blame Iran if they suspected it, and either invade the country or simply nuke it. So in summary, even if Iran had a reliable nuclear arsenal tomorrow, it really only has very bad options for how to use it offensively. In all reality, Iran would likely use nukes the same way other countries do, to deter their enemies from attacking them, because just like in other cases of nuclear states dealing with each other, it's well understood that someone using a nuke results in everyone dying. Well, I hope you learned something by running through the dynamics of this hypothetical scenario. If you did, please like and subscribe. See ya.